All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for spending your Thursday with us again this week. I know last week we covered the UC application and we did a virtual lab just like today, but we covered the first section, the first three sections of the UC application. Today, we're going to be covering the remainder of the sections. And if we have time, we'll cover the last section, which is the PIQ. But as you know, the PIQ does have a dedicated like a few workshops that is under PIQ roundtable that I would highly recommend that you take advantage of that. So even though we're going to be covering some part of the PIQ today, we're going to focus on the last three sections of the UC application. Okay. So again, I mentioned earlier that this is going to be recorded and it can be viewed again if you attend this workshop, but then you're like, oh, I forgot what Jackie talked about, right? You can always go to our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and just type in UC Davis top, like to transfer opportunity program, you should be able to find our YouTube channel. And then from there, you should be able to see all the recorded videos that we have on there. We try to record as many videos as we can, but there are some sessions like group advising where we can't because we have a little bit more identifiable information, so we could not record those. But for all of these like workshop, like Top Thursday and lectures, we do have those recorded and it is available on our YouTube channel. So like I mentioned earlier, we're gonna go over a few slides so you can see. Wait, hold on real quick. What slide are you seeing? Let me see. Sorry, 1 second. Screen 2, screen 3. This is what I wanted to see. Oh, that's weird. Okay, right. That's so weird that it doesn't go all the way open. That's strange. Okay, so here are some slides for you. Like I said, this workshop is going to be on section 4 to 6. So if you can, please make sure that you are following along with us and you have your UC application open in that test score section. That is section 4. And then there's activity and award section. That's section 5. And then the last one, which is scholarship and award, I think scholarships, right? Is the sixth section. So please go follow along with us in this and stay as focused as you can, okay? And then, so here's a quick overview. Like I mentioned, right now I'm going over, the beginning part of this workshop, the rules, right? The housekeeping items. And then after that, I'm going to hand it over to Lily, who will be our facilitator today to walk us through the sections 4, 5, and 6. She was a transfer student. She is a transfer student now, and she is a current student at Davis right now. And so she is very familiar with this application process. So she'll be able to share with you some of her insight and some of the feedback, right? That she gained now as someone who already at the university. And then at the end, in each of the section, we'll take a little pause and we'll check for room temperature to see if you guys have any questions for us before we move on to the next section. But at the very end, we also do a Q&A too. So please use the Q&A feature in this Zoom space to ask your questions. That way I can answer those questions and then I can choose which questions I want to answer live and which questions I can type out the answer for you. Okay, so some keeping items for you. Please use Lily, can you see the screen, like this screen right here? The yellow
Yeah.
window? Okay, perfect. So housekeeping item, you need if you need engagement, like if I ask for engagement, please use the raise hand function. We can bring you to the Zoom space and you can ask your question live. You can also use reaction to let us know how we're going, if we're going too slow, we're going too fast, whatever, right? So you can use those those reactions for engagement. You can also please make sure you kind of like keep your questions relevant to the sections that we're working on today. Again, if you need help with section 1 to 3, there is a recorded video on our YouTube channel, and then there is a few sessions that ask me anything sessions or coffee chats. If you have those particular questions, go to those spaces to kind of answer them or bring it here, and then if we have time, we can answer those as well. And potentially we might not have all of the time to answer all of the allotted questions with the time that we have available. So please forgive us if we don't answer all of the questions that you have today. Again, we only have a few, we don't have like a full house today. So I'm hoping that we will be able to answer all of the questions during this time. And quickly, please take a picture of this. This is a timeline. If you are applying this year, this is a timeline that you need to follow, okay, if you're applying to UCs. So right now the UC application is opened. You should be able to work on it already since August, but it's open to file October 1st to the 30th of November. So between this time, you can turn in your UC application. Now, do you get extra credit for turning it in early? No, you do not get extra credit to turn it in early. So please make sure that your UC application is the most accurate, right? It demonstrate you, who are you, what do you do, how, what do we need to know, right? So please make sure you spend a little bit more time on the UC application and don't feel like you need to turn it in super early. Okay. Again, you don't get extra credit for turning it in early. I'd rather that you have more accurate information. Okay. And then in the TAU, once you submit your UC application in January, you're going to have to log back into the UC application. And there's a section that it's going to ask for TAU, and TAU stand for transfer academic update, and you just got to click on that link and then let us know what grades did you get in the fall, what courses are you taking in the winter or in the spring, right? So put that information in there, and then don't forget your FAFSA or your California Dream Act. If you qualified, if you're part of, you can go ahead and do that. Okay, that's due March 2nd. And then usually for admission decisions, they send it out between late March to April. That's usually the timeline for the UC's campuses. UC Davis particularly is usually like toward the end or the middle of like April is when we send out our decisions. And then of course you have until June 1st to let us know, hey, are you gonna go to our school? You're not gonna go to our school. Please kindly let us know if you're not going to whichever schools that you're not gonna go to, so that they can give your spot to somebody else that might want that spot, right? So that's all I have in terms of like, housekeeping item for today. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I'm going to bring Liliana up next. She's going to share her screen, and then she's going to walk you through from the test score section all the way into the end. Okay, so if you're ready, go ahead and share your screen. Thank you, Lily.
Thank you, Jackie. Like Jackie mentioned before, we are going through sections 4 through 6 today. And since you're here, I expect you to already be on your UC application web page here and sign in. All right, so today's sections, we're going over test scores, activities and awards, and scholarship and programs. So let's begin with section 4, which is test scores. So the first section you get prompt will be the AP exams section. So if you have taken any AP exams in your high school, no matter what the score you've took, please report those scores to us or to your UC application. So for example, let's say you did take AP scores in your high school. So click yes, and then add AP exam. Click you have completed your exam. Month, usually exams are taken in May or completed in May. Let's say I took the exam back in 2015. Which exam did you take? I did take an exam back in the day, and it was 2D art and design. Have you received your score yet? Yes. And let's say you got a score of 4. Now you click save and continue. And of course, if you have taken more AP courses and you have completed more AP exams, you continue on the same process, add AP exam. I'll go through the same process as, did you complete the exam? What exam did you take? The date you take the exam and the score. So the same process. Let's move on to IB exams. So again, same process with IB exams. If you have taken any IB exams in high school, please report those scores as well. Let's say add IB exam completed, very similar in case of filling in out as the AP exam. Month, let's say May. Year, let's go with 2015. Subject area, let's say experimental sciences. Exam level, report your exam level, and so forth. Let's say it was in biology. If you received any scores yet, expected yes. What was your score? Let's say I got the 6, and save and continue. And I go again, same process. If you've taken any other more IB exams, just keep adding them, the same process as before we just did. Let's move on to English language and proficiency test. So if you are a domesticated student, which you are since you're taking community college courses here in California, then you don't have to report your TOEFL exam. But if you have taken it recently, within a year or two, then you can report it. But most likely, since you are a domesticated student, then you don't have to. You're like, no. Then you move on to international exams. Oh, make sure you save and continue in every step. That's very important because usually if you are kind of idle in your section that you're filling out, it may exceed you out and may not save what you just inputted. For international exams, since you are considered, again, taking CC classes and you're a domesticated student, you do not have to, usually you put no in this section. You save and continue. And then here we go to the review section. If you review and you look over and check if you have inputted all your exams that you have taken correctly. It's always good to review, take a pause, and check if you've inputted everything correctly. And I will pass it on to Jackie to see if you'll have any questions so far.
Yeah, I'm surprised that there are no questions about this section in the Q&A right now. So that's why I put it in the chat. Like, don't forget to put your questions in the Q&A so that I can answer them. It's particularly in this particular section, right? So that's the format that we're doing, is that as Lily go through one of the section at a time, once she finishes it, she's gonna pass it back to me to kind of like look at the Q&A, and if there's any questions pertaining to this particular section, I will answer them live so that it's stay on track, right? So it's relevant to the particular section as we move on to the next one. Oftentimes this section, students like literally don't have anything listed on there unless you had AP exams when you were in high school, for example, right? If you took classes in high school, and in high school you were in like schools in the United States, and then you took AP exams, and let's say if you got a 1, right? So here's an example that Lily gave you on top for Art Studio, that she got a 4 in. But in a situation where I got a 1 or a 2, which I did, I had AP Chem and it was a 2. So what do I do with a 2, right? Do I still report it? And the answer is yes, because if you go back to, Lily, can you click on AP exams for real quick for me?
Of course.
So when you click on AP exam, what does it say? It said, do you have any AP exams? It's not asking, do you have any that you want to report, right? It's, did you have any AP exam? So regardless if you have it, right? Like if you've taken it already, because right now you're a community college student, that means that you already passed high school. Like high school is like years before. So at this point, if you have it, then report it. If you don't have it, then don't report it, right? Then you can hit no, because the reality is that you don't have it. But if you do have it, even if it's a 1, even if it's a 2, even if it's a 3, 4, and 5, you do need to report them. Okay. And always double check your college board transcript, right? And same thing with IB, right? They have their own transcripts. So just make sure you use your resource, you use your documentation, so that you can report the most accurate information in there, so you're not leaving out anything, right? And then at this point too, if you have AP or IB exam, you might want to be familiar with how to order those transcripts, because guess what happens once you get admitted to any of the UC's campuses? They're going to be asking for it. So you need to be familiar with what the process looks like. How long will it take for you to obtain a transcript, for example, right? So this is a good time to kind of like, okay, let me go ahead and be familiar with that, because it's been a while since I request for an AP exam, including myself, right? So I had a few questions on the Q&A. Is there any way to make use of the SAT score as a transfer student? Yeah, if that's your test scores, and you want to report it, you can go ahead and report it. But as a transfer student, we don't look for SAT scores, even for high school, like for seniors, high school students, like applying as a freshman. We don't even use the SAT scores anymore for admissions. But you can, if it's something that you're like, oh my God, I got really high score. Like it would be a waste not to flaunt it. You could totally flaunt it. You could totally put it in there, but just know that it's not going to be used against or as a benefit for you. Okay. So good question. Okay. If we took SAT or ACT, do we put no? Yes, you can go ahead and put no. Again, SATs and ACTs is not required for admission, and it's definitely not required. It has not been required for a transfer student at all. This is something that they used to have for freshman applicants, but for transfer, no. The answer is no, so you can go ahead and put no. And then as a transfer, do you need to give your AP exams? Yes, if you had it. It's not a matter of do you want to report it or you do not want to report it. Like let's say I got a 1, I'm not that happy with a 1, so I don't want to report it. It's not a matter of what you want to. It's the question asks you, do you have it? And if you have a test score, right, then you need to report it. Legally, you have to report it if you have it, right? Remember, application integrity, right? Just remember that you will have to sign that when you're at the very end, when it's say review and submit. So just make sure that you read the question carefully, right? And then you answer that. Okay.
Jackie,
Yeah.
if I could, if
Yeah.
they're getting prompt a question for SAT or ACT, do you think maybe they did not put like maybe their application is freshman? Because I don't think they
No.
should be getting asked those type of questions.
No, they will have that on there because sometimes SAT scores, depending on what you take, what exams you take, it could also be a way that they use to place you in like English,
Oh, gotcha.
but yeah, but even if they apply as a freshman, it's not a
Okay.
required question where the student have to report like the SATs exams or ACT exams, the scores of it. So regardless,
Yeah.
what if you're clicking on transfer or a freshman for right now for fall 2024 application, it should not be. It's
Yeah.
not a criteria for admission decisions. um Whoever asking the question about Santa Barbara rep, and then is there a detriment to skip reporting 1 or 2s? No, but again, right, if you had an AP exam and you had a 1 and a 2, what is there to be ashamed of? Again, AP stand for advanced placement, right? Normally students don't take advanced placement, but you did. So I feel like even if it was a 1 or a 2 or a 3, even you pass it or you didn't pass it, it's something that you should be proud of. Like if I took AP exam and like if I have the ability to take AP exam to challenge myself, like I would be like confident about that. Like I would be flaunting that because again, not a lot of people take AP exam or IB exam. When you take it, it means that you're challenging yourself. So I wouldn't take 1 or 2 as something that you should be ashamed of. So I would report it. And again, like I mentioned earlier, if you read the question and the question asks you, do you have any AP exams? Is it planned? Is it completed? You need to report that, right? Um, so I would recommend that. Okay, so I think we're ready to go ahead and move on to the activity and award section, and then I will answer the rest of the Q&A in typing.
All right. So now that you have completed or did your best on completing your AP test scores section, we continue on with activities and awards. For activities and awards, let's add another activity award. You're going to be given a category to select. So you can be either award or honor, educational preparation program, extracurricular activity, volunteer community service, or work experience. So I'm going to go back real quick. So here, for example, let's say I took an educational preparatory program, set other. This is Discover UCD 2021. And here it asks, briefly describe the program. Please keep in mind you do have a character limit. I knew firsthand when I was trying to explain the programs I've taken, I always run out of space. So always keep in mind of you typing out your description for the program you join. So Discover UC Davis is a free career planning and exploration symposium for community college students from participating in top institutions. So since you're all here attending a top webinar, I assume you probably have heard of or already have experienced these programs. So I could recommend you including this into your application. Here, when did you participate in a program? You click after 12th grade because we are not in high school right now. We are in college. You click how long you spent in this program. So for example, this program was 0 years and 1 month. And you also go in and you input how many hours you were in that program per week. And you also put how many weeks you spent per year. So example here was 6 and 1 week per year. Another example, let's say you have volunteer and community service. So we probably have some top champions in the audience. Nice to see you all back. So as one example for volunteer community service, we have top champion. And here you briefly describe what the organization is, what does it do, what community does it serve. And here description, top champions help UCT top staff and CC Transfer Center share transfer preparation sources to more students through classrooms and student organizations. Again, be mindful of the character limit. It's not the word limit, it's a character limit. And here you briefly describe what you did or your role in this volunteer experience. So for example, I provided classroom announcements, tabling, presented transfer resources at student organization and meetings. And again, asks you when did you volunteer? You click after the 12th grade. And for all of these volunteer experience, or depending when you want to report when you volunteer for your particular experiences, it may be before or after high school, but generally you want to report the most recent experiences that you've had. So for this one, again, it asks you the number of years, the number of months, 1 year. Again, it asks you hours spent per week, and also asks you weeks spent per year. So 1 week, 36 weeks. Save and continue. And again, you can include other experiences like work experience. For other volunteer or community service, you can also put if you are a caregiver for, let's say, maybe your elderly parents or another loved one, or you do babysitting, that also counts as volunteer experience. So you can also input that as part in this section. So let's see, add another, maybe an award. So you can add in an award. For me, I believe it was SEC Math Memorial Award. Level recognition through the school. Type of award, it was an academic award. And of course, I received the award after 12th grade. And here you describe the eligibility requirements for the award or honor. And I think for this one is, of course, you need to go in a bit of detail and also keep in mind of the character limit of the description for your award or activities or any other sections here. So I'm gonna write really briefly, like it required just two people, so it's pretty exclusive. And for time's sakes, I'm just going to leave this as it is. But again, as you've seen in previous examples, you give a really brief, detailed description on what you did for that particular volunteer experience or for your award or whatever the questions that they're asking you to describe. And for this award, what did you achieve in this award or honor? Let's see, it's asking you how, were there multiple competition you had to participate in, how much time do you dedicate to this award? Is for this one, you just had to write an essay, so I'm just going to type in essay so it doesn't mark me as incomplete here. But again, you go into a little bit more in detail in your descriptions while keep in mind of the character limit. But don't do what I'm doing here, just really do give a good detailed description. Okay, save and continue. All right, I'm going to move on to review now. Or click I finish adding activities. And now you're in the review section once again, to make sure you inputted everything correctly. And I'm going to pass it on to Jackie, just if there's any Q&A questions.
Yeah, there's so many great ones. I already answered a few, but I think that I saved some of them to ask live. Kai asked this question, and I think it's such a great question. What is value the highest in the extracurricular and activities, right? Is it the volunteer work, the work experience? There is no like there's no preference in terms of like one over the other. If you can't go back to the activity and awards, Lily, real quick, if you click on the top on the menu on the right side. So in this section, like you read at the beginning, right? I always recommend that before you work on a section, you always read the section first, right? I this was a tip that I said during the last meeting as well. Click on add activity and awards real quick. Okay, so that section right there, yeah, that whole section right there. In this section, you have up to 20, right? Awards and activities that you can list. But make sure you focus on the one that you are that are the most important to you. Important means impact, right? So let's say if you have an activity that you did in high school, but it was such an impact to your growth, your personal, your professional, maybe it hit maybe from that particular interaction that you found the love for the major that you picked now, right? Like that's a huge impact, right? Like not everybody wake up in the morning and say I want to be an aerospace engineering. Like there had to be things that happened throughout your life and that led you to that path, right? And maybe that means that you participated in MESA, like a support program, right, for STEM. Maybe that means that you were, if you're first gen, and like me, I was a part of EOPS. I was a part of Upward Bound when I was in high school. And because of Upward Bound and ETS, it really helped me prepared and planned and know how to research and know how to dig deeper, right? Like those are the skill set that I gained when I was a part of those programs. And I would talk about that. So here's an example for you. Can you click on review?
Yes.
Right. So here, all of you have access to top, right? It's a program that is particularly designed for your school, right? This is a partnership with your school. Not everybody in the California community college system have access to this. You do, right? As a student enrolled at your school. So with top, I would, here's a description what she wrote, right? Again, one tip that I can give you is every school, every job, every company, every program, they always have a website. Yeah. Right? They have a website, and most of the time their website have what? Maybe their mission statement, like some type of slur. So you want to go to their website. Don't work harder than you need to. Go to their website, look at what they wrote, right? And then rephrase what they wrote in your own language. And then you write that on there. So if you're talking about program description, that's the best way to go about it. Like just paraphrase what they talk about in your own words, right? And then what you want to can you click on add activity and awards again, but then like actually click on top? You click on that and then click on top, like where it say nope, edit, nope, go back right there, edit. Okay, go all the way down, right? Go down, right? So if you're a part of top and you go, you engage with us pretty regularly, then I would say, 3 is probably like the max. Like nobody go over 3. Even when Lily was at Sac City, like she would meet with me and she'll talk to me, but she was not a 3, right? So like 3 is like somebody who is like going to every workshop that we have available, right? Like everything that we're doing one-on-one appointment, like you really utilizing all the resources that we have, then I would consider that a 3 out of the week. But oftentimes, a normal one would be like a 1, right? So 1, 2, and 3. 1 means like, hey, I met with the person a couple times through the semester. 2 means like I'm very engaged with this program. 3 means like, okay, I'm like a superstar. And usually my top champions are the ones that are kind of like the superstar because they are really, 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 really engaged. And then, of course, the weeks, right? The weeks, she wrote 5 here, and that's incorrect, right? So it's the whole week for the year. So for example, she started working with me last year, and so last year was a whole year, and then like this coming year, we're only in fall, but then you have to think of, okay, we're still going to help you all the way until the end of spring until you actually get somewhere, right? So round that up because the application is for next year for fall 2024. So unless you stop working with us now, like after this workshop, then go ahead and put 5 months, right? But if you're still needing our help, like there's still content that we're going to provide in the spring that is different than the fall. And if you're still engaging with us for those content, then I would say round it up all the way into the year, right? So usually I would say like 36 weeks. It's a normal because we don't do winter and we don't do like summer, even though we do we do have some services during the winter and during the summer. But sometimes 36 is pretty like a standard number. I would say 40 is for somebody who is like really engaged with us and been working with us during the summer, during the winter, like they work a whole year round with us, and I would say 40. Right? So that's kind of like an example on how to fill this part out. And then the other part, if you go back to the activity and awards again, there are 5 things, right? 5 categories that you could use. So I don't want you to think like, oh, I need to use up 20 activity and award, like 20 space. Like don't feel like you have to fill that out, right? It's more so, it's not like the quantity. Like if you read the sentence right above that, it's not about the quantity. We're looking for quality, not quantity, right? So it's really about how pick the ones that are impactful to you and then share that experience and share how that had helped and and mold you to think the way that you think or being the person that you are today. So that is really important for you to note on there. But normally I would tell students this, maybe out of those 5 sections, maybe do a few in each section, right? There's always something that you can talk about. Like there's a section about like work experience. A lot of our transfer students work, right? If you get paid, it doesn't matter if you are working in the field that you're majoring in. It doesn't matter. If you work at McDonald's, you put it in there. If you work at a school, like if you're a student staff at your school, you put that in there. As long as you get paid, then you put that in there. If you volunteer, right? Like you do an internship that's not paid, right? Then you put it under volunteer, for example. I think everyone could put also extracurricular activities, right? Like for example, for that particular one, what are your hobbies? What are you involved in student organizations, right? Are you in any clubs, right? So those are some examples that you have. Like, are you a part of a church? Are you a part of a temple? Are you a part, like, do you like, places like that? What do you do other than eating, studying, and sleeping? What do you do with your day? That's what they want to know, right? They want to they want to know your hobbies. They want to know how do you de-stress, right? Like when you're studying and when finals, stuff like that, and you're stressed out. Like what do you do? What are your hobbies, right? So just make sure you do that. Let me see if there's is it possible to update extracurricular activities after November? No. So once you submit it, there's nothing you can update except your fall and your spring. I'm going to say that again. After you submit your UC application, it's not about submitting halfway and like, okay, just take that and grade me on half of this. And by the way, I'll work on it again and then send it out. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay. It's about filling it out to the best of your ability that you're happy about, that you're proud of, sending it in, and then the TAU that's in January, that one is going to require you to go back to the application, and then you're only going to have one section that is going to be unfreeze. Everything else is going to be frozen. By the way, spoiler alert, everything in the UC application is going to be frozen, and the only section that is going to be unfreeze would be the fall 2023 section and then the spring 2024 section, because like I say, if you drop classes in the fall, you'll be able to update your grades, right? Your W's, right? Right? And then the spring, you're planning to take these classes when you submit it in November, but who say that your school is going to offer these classes? Who say that you might be able to register to these classes, right? Maybe you're on the wait list and you couldn't get through, right? So like who say you'll be enrolled? So you will be able to go back and say, you know what? I wasn't able to register to it. So these are the classes that I'm actually taking. And you will have to confirm that during that time in January. But yeah, you're not going to be able to go back back to any other parts of the UC application and update anything. So when you're working on it before you submit it in November, you really need to make sure that it is like in the best shape possible. Lily, you mentioned about like taking care of parents. Where should you report that?
I remember when I filled out my application, I reported under volunteer experience.
You can also put it the right place. I would put it would be extracurricular activities. So if you go back to the extracurricular activity, and there's no wrong to this, right? It's technically volunteering too. Right? You're not getting paid for it, right? So yeah, so if you go back to that one, click on add an award real quick, and then you click like the description would say extracurricular activity on top, right? Like that's kind of like the general dumping ground, right? Because all of the other ones are very specific, right? Like if this is not an award, if this is not an honor, then don't put it under award and honor. If it's not an educational preparation program, right? Like TOP, like TAP, like MESA, like EOPS, like Emoja, right? Like which other program like Sac City has Rise, right? The special programs that you have at your community college, like San Mateo has a Promise program, right? So these particular, right? So these particular ones, then it would be under educational preparation. But like if it's work, it has to be paid. If it's volunteer, it's unpaid. So technically, Lily, you could put it in, you know, extracurricular activity or volunteering community service as well, just because you're not getting paid for it, right? We had a question, so let me go ahead and bring you to the space, and then you can answer. You can ask your question. Let me see. Go ahead, Ahmad.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi. Can we add the scholarships to the programs or to the
Yeah,
activities?
the
or no?
scholarship is the next one. So right now we're finishing up this, and we're gonna go into the scholarship next.
Oh, we cannot add it here to
Oh,
this.
like you got a scholarship?
Yeah, we got a scholarship, or we can add it to this.
Yeah, like let's
Or,
say if you got a scholarship while you're at the community college, yeah, you can totally
Mhm.
put that under awards and honor.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, of
Appreciate
course.
that.
Great question. Yeah, if you're taking honor classes, again, there's 20 spaces in here. I don't recommend you like, you know, writing it in there just to write a laundry list, but really pick which one really impacted you and why did you like when you think about why you should put it in here. If you're going to spend the next like 5-10 minutes to fill out, you know, one of the section, like just make sure you answer that question. Well, why am I using that? Like why am I disclosing that particular activity? Like how did it how is it changing me as a person, right? So for example, I'm one of 5 in my family, and I'm the oldest one in my family. So when I was applying for school, I did put family responsibility in under the extracurricular activity because it really demonstrates that if I had more time, if I didn't have to take care of my family, my sister, my brothers, right, like picking them up from school, doing nanny work, cleaning them, tutoring them, right, like I would be able to have that time by participating in extracurricular activities that my school have, right, or outside of my school. But because I have that time is dedicated for my family, I don't have the same privilege as other people, right? Other students. I couldn't do sports. I couldn't do a lot of things that I wanted to do. So I would put that on there, but I also explained that because my family responsibility was a responsibility, right? That it taught me ABCD. It taught me leadership. It taught me how to communicate with my family. It taught me how to be responsible. And all of that are ingredients that you need in order to be successful once you know, move on with your life, right? It's an ingredient that you need for the rest of your life, not just while you're being a student, right? It's necessary. So so that's one of the things that I shared on there. Let me see if I can go ahead and have you speak again. Go ahead. What's your question? Ahmad? No question?
Oh, sorry, no, I don't have any
Okay,
questions. Sorry.
no worries. I'm gonna go ahead and let's go ahead and let's move on to the scholarship section.
Gotcha. Wait, why did it take me? Okay, sorry about that. Oh, because I had to choose campus. Okay. Jackie, because I didn't have the first three sections filled out. It's asking me to before filling out the scholarship sections, they want me to fill out the first three sections first. You're muted.
I was worried that this was going to happen. Okay, let me see if I could do it on my end. I had some stuff filled out, but I don't have everything filled out. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I have on my end. I'll run through this section for you.
Okay,
Go ahead and
apologies
stop
for that.
sharing. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. And again, I know that there's so many questions in the Q&A. Maybe Lily, you can take a stab at that while I present the section. But if I don't if I don't get to your question, please go ahead and raise your hand at the end. We're gonna finish it really quick and then we can answer those questions live as well. So I thank you for your patience. Okay, so in this section, it's pretty simple. You can see my screen, hopefully. So in this section, this section is not a required section. So oftentimes students just kind of like skip it and move on, or they just kind of click on a few things and then move on. But I really, really want you guys to spend some time on this, okay? So the UC application is also a scholarship section, a scholarship application for like incoming students. So it's really important that they spend some time on this and really understand what they're clicking and then click them, right? And accompany with that, they definitely would want to see you file a FAFSA or a California Dream Act if you qualify. So that's the description on here. I'm just paraphrasing what I'm reading on here, but again, every section you should read the very first section with the instruction, right? So before you start working on the rest. In this section, what I like to do is that I don't work in section by section, I just expand all. And before I expand all, you see here, each of these are sections, right? Subsections within it. So I'm going to go ahead and expand, and I'm going to go through one section at a time, one subsection at a time. So academic major and interests, right? So if you see something like this, oftentimes student will click on major, like they find in here in this list of their major, and then after that they kind of just move on to the next one, and they completely left out the interests, right? So for example, I'll give you my example. When I was applying for schools, I was an engineering major. I wanted to do mechanical engineering, right? So I found my major right there. But engineering, you got to understand, engineering has a lot of math, right? A lot of physics, right? And then, right, so those are the things that you kind of have to kind of like think a little bit further. Don't just click on one and then move on, right? So if I was gonna say interest, right, I'm gonna look at each of these as I'm going, like the boxes as I'm going down. Do I have an interest in? No. Like if you read it and you're like in your mind it's like, oh heck no, then that's pretty strong feeling about it, then move on to the next one. But for example, mechanical engineering, if I don't mind, looking into this, maybe I'll put agricultural engineering. I don't know, right? Like I'm interested in it. And I'm gonna look at the next one for business. Nah. American Indian language, no. Chemistry, well, my major had chemistry, so I'm gonna go ahead and click on that. I don't like chemistry, but but I have to take it anyways, right? I love dancing. I was a cheerleader in high school, so I love dancing. So that's also a way for me to de-stress. So I'm gonna click on that. Let me see. Education is really important to me, and I'm interested in that. Like I was a tutor when I was in high school. I was a tutor when I was in college, right? So like education is huge for me. So I'm gonna click on that. It's part of my interest. My parents were a farm worker, like so I was, I came from farm worker, right? So for me, environmental and natural resources is really important. So like that's part of like my DNA, right? So I'm gonna click on that. Humanities, right? So like for me, that's important. So that's also an interest. Like I believe that in the end for all, education is a service for all. So that's part of like using what you learn and giving back to your community and make your community better, healthier, and and improving, right? So I'm going to click on those things because again, that's an interest, right? I don't like journalism. So I'm just going to skip that, right? So like, again, anything that it's in here that maybe it's pertaining to your major, but maybe it's also something that you're interested in. You might want to click on that. So that's the section that, that's a tip that I would give you. Same thing like physics, right? It's my major engineering has physics. So I'm going to put that on there as well. Let me see right here, STEM, right? Like, right? Because the major is STEM. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So if you're a pre-med, right? If you're a biology major and you're pre-med, you want to click on that, right? So if your major is in social sciences discipline, you can also click on that too, right? If you're interested in teaching later on down the line, and then you're interested in particularly to special education, you can also click on that too. So it's just a matter of like, what is your major? What is the scope of your major? Dig a little bit deeper. What is your major, what is it composed of? And then second, are you interested in anything else that's listed on here? Then you can go ahead and click on that, right? So go down to here for affiliation and group. And I told Lily this before. There are some of these sections, it's literally either you are interested or you're not getting a heck no kind of answer in your mind. But for some of them, it's also like either you are associated or you're not. Either you participated or you have not participated. So in this section it's more like affiliation, right? Affiliation means involvement. It means participation. So if you like look at these and you have no clue what it is, that means you did not participate in it, right? So I didn't like when I was in high school, I did not participate in any sorority and fraternities, but when I went to college I did, right? So but when I filled this out, no, I don't know what that is. No, I don't know what that is. No, I don't know what that is, right? So if you don't know what it is, then you can go ahead and move on to the next one. If you didn't have any family member or like relatives that went to UCI, then you move on from that one, right? Let's say if you participate in organization that benefit women, like the WYCA, I think that was, you could also click on that, right? So it's just the participation, right? Affiliation, participation, and involvement. So if you are a part of something, just go ahead and click on them. I was a part of college track, so I would put on that, right? That's an example. SMASH program, it's another support program, but that they didn't have that at in my region, in my area, so I didn't participate in that, right? So I think that's basically it for this. And then moving on to the ancestry and descendant. Again, this is a section that is either you are or you're not, right? Either you were born with that status or you're not in that status. So for example, this right here for San Francisco firefighting or peace officers type, like, no, I don't have that, so I'm not going to click on it, right? I'm first gen. My parents never went to any schools, let alone any UC, so they did not work for any UC, so I don't have that there, right? So not San Diego. But my mom came from farm, and I was raised in a farm when I was little, so I would click on that, right? Let's see what other ones that we would click on. Most of the transfer students, like this section, like none of these really apply to them unless you're in kind of like, like certain particular area like Oakland. Then maybe that could apply to you. But again, you gotta really understand what you're reading, right? So if you're not a descendant of any of these people, then obviously you can't click on them, right? Let's say if you're a foster youth, then you want to click on that. Let's say if you're a single mom, right, and you have minor kids, then you could also click on that. Let's say if you're an orphan or a foster child before the age of 15, you can click on that because there are some scholarships for foster youth. And then if your parent is a member of like the UC, like they work in the UC, like as a faculty, you can also click on that. Let's say if you were raised by a single mom, but then and also a single parent, you can click on both of them. So those are some examples for that section that usually I see students click on. And then the career plan, this one is the one that I think a lot of time trying to get through students to understand that your education plan is one thing, right? And then your career plan is another thing, right? They oftentimes it's a train that go parallel to each other, but it is not the same thing. So for example, an example that I gave to one of my students is, okay, you want to be a pharmacist, right? But what if after you graduated from a UC, you can't, and you applied to a, to a pharmacy school, and you didn't get accepted? What do you do right after in that gap time? What do you do? So if any of these companies or any of these fields come up to you and say, hey, I want to hire you, I want you to work for us, would you say yes to? Right. So when you think of it like that, that's how you should answer this particular section. So for example, let's say, I'm good at math, but I cannot see myself doing accounting, right? So no. But I can see myself doing finance maybe, or maybe I can do accounting and finance at the same time, or working in the bank industry, right? So you can click on that, and business, right? Maybe you want to work potentially, right? That's happened to me when I graduated. It was the market crash is not funny, but the market crashed during that time. And as a result, there was a lot of companies that didn't hire. There was a freeze in hiring. A lot of people was getting laid off. A lot of people. So when I graduated, there was not a lot of jobs, right, out there, even though I know I was a hot shot. Like I know I'm smart. I know I got it going on. I know I have all the skills that they need, and they will be lucky to have me. I knew that. But the reality is I applied for jobs and there wasn't too many available. And then on top of that, like I didn't really secure a job before I graduated. So what I ended up doing was that I was teaching at a local middle school, and I got a teaching credential, like, to work there. And then I was also going to school to get my teaching credential. So I ended up teaching. But if you were to ask me before, that wouldn't happen, right? So when you're filling this out, it's like, well, let's say in your major, what if, Lily, if you don't go and work for NASA, okay? And in between, like, you get an offer for teaching and research or public service, would you accept that job? And if the answer is yes, then yeah, you click on it, right? So oftentimes, like, people don't think of it that way. And I like for you guys to approach it that way, right? Maybe communication, you're a natural communicator. Like, it doesn't matter what field you go into, whether that is public health, whether that is, like engineering, whether that is education, right? It doesn't matter what field you go into. And if you're just good at communication, if there's a job right there waiting for you in terms of that field, why not, right? Why not say yes to it? Education, right? So for me, education was huge. So like, that's a heck yeah for me. So I would click on that. Again, environmental and resources, right? That's huge for me. Environmental protection. If I get a job that is going to match my values, right, my personal value, then I would always say yes to. Right, work in human services, working in research, working in informational technology, working in social justice, right? For equity, for food equity, working in food education, working in sustainable farming. Remember, I told you my personal experience with farming, right? And how that blossom into like the love for natural resources and protection, conservation, right? Like, so that is a huge thing for me. So I'm going to go ahead and click on those. Teaching high school physics. Nope, not me. My physics, I barely pass it. I'm not going to teach it, right? So like, if that's a no, then totally no, right? Don't click on it. But if you're like, oh my God, I love physics. I was an engineering major. I love physics. And you can see yourself teaching physics in high school, go ahead and click on that, right? This for me right here, again, restoration, right? Like conservation, that's a huge thing for me. So like, if I get a job after, and my major does have nothing to do with that, right? So again, it doesn't have to be the same major, but this is just career interest. Civic leadership, global leadership, I'm clicking on all of these. I love companion animal, so I'm going to click on that. Social justice, again, working in communities and addressing poverty in California. Heck yeah, right? Law and humanities and social welfare. Yeah, I'm going to click on that. Marketing, totally. Music, I love music, right? So if there's a job for me for music, I'm getting it. Let's say I wanted to do pharmacy, for example, right? Or nursing, like who knows, after you graduate as a biology major or type of biology major, who knows which, pre-health track you're going to go into. So just clicking on all of those that kind of like meta, like relate to it, right? Another thing that student always leave out, it's this one right here, public sector, right? Now it's talking about public versus private, right? When it's a private owned, it's kind of like Apple, like private owned. But if you work for the state, that's a public, right? So Like, so I would click on those. School, right? Again, it relate to education, like I mentioned earlier, student counseling. That was so my thing. Teaching English, totally, right? So like some of those things that I would definitely click on, but literally read each of the boxes as you go through them. And if you're like a hard no pass, then okay, go ahead, swipe left, move on to the next one. But if you're like totally yes, 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 then click on those boxes. Okay. Okay, ethnicity and national region and religions. So this is a section that is either you are or you're not, right? So this is not me. This is not me, right? I'm not Japanese either, right? The ones that I would click is like I'm first gen, right? So I'm first generation citizen in the United States. So that's me. I would also click on first generation American, right? I would also click on immigrant to the United States because I got my naturalization in the United States. I was actually born in a different country. I came to the US, my parents got naturalized, and then therefore I got naturalized. But I still consider myself an immigrant, right? So I would put that. Again, it's just either you are or you're not, right? If you're Muslim, if you're Jewish, if you're Japanese descent, if you're Italian immigrant, if you're Irish descent, for example, you can click on all of those. If you're a refugee, I had some students that are refugee that are seeking asylum right now. They can also click on that as well. If you were born in Iran, right? At least one of the parents born in Iran, you can also click on that. If you have ancestors from this town in China, you can also click on that. And then Taiwanese descent, you can also click on that, right? So moving on to the extracurricular activities and work experience. Again, this one is either you participate or you don't participate, right? It's either you do it or you don't, right? So for me, when I fill this out, I would fill out like this because community service was a huge thing for me. And that's where I learned leadership. That's where I learned civic duties, right? That's how I learned that I'm fortunate, that I appreciate what I have, that I'm appreciate that I have that I can give what I have and share that with others that don't have the same privileges that I have, right? So that's where I learn how to be humble, how to be, right? So like that's the things that you guys want to dive a little bit deeper on. Right. Okay, so let's see right here, right? This again, I mentioned to you, I was an engineering major, right? So and then sometimes too, you have to think of this in this section is that sometimes you might be applying for different majors. So like for Lily, maybe she applied to Davis as aerospace engineering, right? But not all of the UC's campuses have aerospace. Does it make sense? So sometimes she might be like, okay, what is closest to aerospace engineering that she can apply to? And she might, when she applies, she might apply to another UCs with a different engineering major or a completely different major, not even anywhere close to the mark of engineering. And that happened to me. There are some UCs that I applied, at like I would apply as a biology major. And then there are some that I would also think about, maybe engineering, right? So just keep in mind that like just because you have one major, it doesn't mean that you have to apply the same major to all of the UCs either. So when that is a situation for you, or that's a situation for you, just keep that in mind when you're working in this section. Okay. See right here, I love helping people, less fortunate or not less fortunate, it doesn't matter. Like I will help anyone and anyone. So I'll click on that. I was an athlete, so I'll click on that. I participate in a lot of extracurricular activities. I did a lot of community education. I did not drop out of school, so I'm not going to click on that. I am hetero, but then I am like I'm an advocate for gay rights, so like I would click on that. I will be working while I'm in college, and then I am working part-time right now, so like I would click on all of these things. Again, go down section by section or box by box and make sure that you actually click on it. So for example, this one I didn't click, but I did do that, right? And then demonstrate leadership in campus organization. I was a treasurer when I was in high school, right? So I would click on that. Okay, family circumstances and relationship. Again, this is either you have or you don't, right? Bilingual in Chinese, and no, I wish I know how to speak Chinese. That would be cool. Death of parents from cancer. back then, no, but now, yes. But I'm not applying right now, right? So I'm not going to click on that. First one in my family. So when I fill it out, I would click on that because I'm the first one in my family to attend college. I'm also a first generation college student. I'm not a single parent. I'm not gay or lesbian. I don't have a like a dependent. Right. So let's say if I am an asylum seeker, I would click on that, right? My English is not my first language, so I would click on that as well, right? So there are some sections in here that you can click. Again, it's just a matter of like reading each of the boxes as you go through it. Health and disability, and this is a section that I think a lot of time it's a stigma, right? You think like, oh, I don't want them to know that I have a learning disability. So for me, it's more so in terms of like early identification so that you can get connected to the resources that you have on campus. So I personally would disclose, I did when I filled it out. So I'm not blind, I'm not visually impaired, I'm not diabetic, I don't have, thank God, I don't have cancer. I'm not hard hearing, right? So sometimes you do have, if that's the case for you, then you click on that. I do have a learning disability, so I would click on that, right? This, I don't have that. And then I don't have a major illness. So I'm gonna skip that. I don't have leukemia, so I'm gonna leave that. And then I would identify this, right? So I will click on that, but I am not physical. I don't have like a visible kind of disability, so I'm not going to click on that. So in this section alone, I have 2 that I would identify with. But again, it's okay if you don't have anything check on here. Don't feel like you have to, but think of this section as like, like early, resources that they can connect you to once you get to the university, right? So like I would disclose it if you have it. And don't feel like if you need a little bit more help, like don't feel afraid to ask for help. Like that's one thing that you're gonna realize really quickly, if not already at your community college. You're gonna realize really quickly when you go to a 4 university, like you are the champion of your life, you are the expert of your life, you know what you need and you know what you want, and you need to be proud of saying what you need and what you want. And don't feel like, oh, they're going to think less of me if I have this or this. It's not the case, right? Like you just need to be comfortable with taking up space, right? The school and geographic affiliation, again, this is either you live in that area or not, you don't live in that area. So for example, my Sacramento students, maybe, look at something that is regional too, right? If you're in a part of a small town or no, like in somewhere in Sacramento County, like you can also click that on there too, or somewhere in the in California, you could also put that into, or out of state, whatever. I can also put that in there as well. So this is just the region, right? Like either you are or you're not. So like for me, like when I filtered out, I click on this. I've seen students click California born because they were born in the United States or born in California. So they would click on this. Like, let's say my daughter was to apply, she probably will click on this because she was born in California. Most of you and all of you should click California Community College transfer, because if you're not enrolled at a California community college, then you might not, I don't know, like we work with California community college students. So, so if you probably are, like probably 99.99% of you are California college transfer students. So make sure you click on that. Other areas in here that usually people click on, I think that one is the obvious one, but was there anything else on here, Lily, that you would click on? It's because it's so specific, it's either like in LA or Alameda or Fremont. I see Compton, I see like Yuba, but this one is very specific, right? It's not like, oh, you're in Yuba. It's like played basketball team at Butte or, Yuba Community College. There's a scholarship for that, for example, right? So make sure you really carefully read it. It's not just, okay, are you in Yuba or enroll at Yuba Community College and you click on that? No, that's wrong reading. That's not the interpretation, right? So it's like you have to play basketball at these schools, then you can go ahead and click on that, right? So again, this section is really self-explanatory. It's just a matter of you going through the boxes and just clicking on that, okay? And then the transfer student section, like this is a good part. Like let's say if you are over 25, like within 25 to 50 and had a break in between, right? And a lot of the transfer students that I know, they do have that. So they would click on that, right? Community college student who had overcome, you know, adversities. Like, so if you feel like that speaks to you, then go ahead and click on that. I feel like that was, then I would click on that, right? Mature person returning to college after absence for at least 5 years. Like I see that in the transfer population more so than freshmen, right? And then the scholarship, right? So you can click on that. Reentry are basically students who take a gap and then come back, or they're a little bit older and they're coming back. So that's what they identify you as a reentry student. So you can click on that. Sometimes for some schools, reentry also means that like if you have a record, right? So depending on where, like who, like, you know, so that's also what they identify with right there, right? If you have a record. And then let me see. This one is obviously not going to apply to a lot of the male, right? Because you're not a woman, but like this one is like, maybe this one, Lily and I will click on this because potentially we might be doing graduate school. Let's say when we click on this, we identify as women and we potentially will be obtaining, you know, a graduate degree, who knows, right? So we would click on that, right? So let me see real quick. I think there is a few question Barry asked me, would we include EOPS in this section? I think you're talking about the activity and award section, and yes, the answer is yes. If you participate in EOPS, you would want to put that in there, and it should be under the educational preparation programs. Click under other and then type in EOPS, and then you would explain that, right? So let's go ahead and go back to this part real quick. I'm gonna go to the support program. This is the part that it kind of relates to that EOPS question that you had, right? So at the community college level, you know it as EOPS, but at a four-year university, we know it as EOP, right? Very similar without the S. So in here, you want to read the description, right? Like, what do they do? What do they provide? How are they going to help you, right? What kind of population are they helping? EOP had always been the support program that helped provide kind of like a wraparound service for students who identify as first generation or low income or from educational disadvantaged backgrounds. And so this is kind of like what they like who and what, and you know what they help with. So in this particular one, I was a part of Upward Bound, which is first gen low income, right? It's part of the TRIO, and this is also part of TRIO program in federally funding that go into EOPS or EOP. So on here, I would totally I would be interested in getting the help. If anyone want to help me, I'm not going to say no. Like, you know, if there's resources that are going to help me financially or whatever, like I'm not going to say no. So a couple benefits that EOP has that I'm aware of is they help with they have a grant. So when I was an EOP student, they gave me some money, and it's an EOP grant. So I got some money to pay for school. The other part that I also had was I had a dedicated like counselors to kind of help me with like making sure I'm taking the right classes and whatnot. It's an additional resource, right? And then additionally, they also had a waiver for orientation, right? So like all the students after they get admitted, they have to go to orientation, and orientation costs money. So being a part of EOP, they gave me a waiver for orientation, so I didn't have to pay for that, right? So those are some of the benefits that I can mention on here, but you can always go to the website at each of the schools, each of the UC campuses that offer EOP, and then you can see like what is it that they really help you with, and you can write in there. So like, why are you interested in EOP? So if you were a part of EOPS and you saw how helpful it was for you being someone who participated in the program, maybe you should also disclose that. You know, I was a part of EOPS in community college, and they play a huge like a vital role in my success as I'm transferring. And so I would love to continue that services with EOP. So that's something that I personally would write, right? So that's to tell them why I'm interested in it. as a first gen low income, first one to go to college, right? Like I need help and I don't know what I don't know. And I need, to be a part of programs that are going to be able to tell me what I don't know and educate me so that I can stay on track, right? So that's something that you would write, but you do have a limit. Just like all the other section, you do have a word limit. So just make sure that you write it in a concise way. And then after that, you just click on review, and then everything is going to displays. Right now, I didn't have anything because I didn't click on anything earlier, or I didn't save it. Right. And then after that, you can move on to the personal insight question section. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing right now, and then maybe I can look at the Q&A, and then, or you guys can also raise your hand if your question hasn't been answered yet. And right now we're going to move into the Q&A section. So let's go ahead. There you go. All right, let me go ahead and bring you to the screen. So go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, so I was looking at the scholarship part, and I noticed there were a lot less options for me to click on. Like I don't even have the option to say that I'm a transfer student. So I was just wondering if that would impact my ability to maybe get a scholarship for that.
No, it wouldn't. And then on top of that, if you for transfer students, some schools, they do have scholarships for students that are incoming. So for Davis, that is the case. We have 2 scholarships that is housed at the transfer center, the transfer reentry center at Davis, that are available for transfer students. So if your section, if it doesn't populate that section, like the one that I showed you, that happens. I see that happens as well, and it's okay if that's happening to you. You can just make sure that whichever populate for you, that you answer it to the most accurate as you can. But it doesn't really affect you in terms of like scholarship. And no, it won't. And then also too, don't forget that in the spring, I'm going to be covering like how to apply for scholarships. So if you like our content in the fall, wait for the spring, girl, because I'm bringing it to you. Like, we love money over here, and we want to make sure that y'all got money and not have to worry about money, right? So we will be covering like how to, like, I think in November we have a section on decoding financial aid, so that because it's financial aid season, right? So we're gonna have a section kind of like breaking apart, like deconstructing financial aid and how is it actually look like in the United States and in California particularly. So we're going to have a section for you to learn the basics. And then in the fall, we're going to be looking at like different scholarships. And as a community college student right now, like, what should you be using? What kind of tool is good out there to use? What kind of website is good? How do you apply? How do you organize yourself? How do you like execute, right, your application when you're submitted? So don't worry about the scholarship section part yet. If you don't have the exact same thing that I showed you right now, just as long as you fill out what you actually see, just make sure you fill it out as much as you can, and then go from there. But if you worry about scholarship, don't worry. In the spring, there is a curriculum for apply for scholarship like a pro. Just wait for that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have anyone else that have questions? Van, let me go ahead and bring you up. Give me 1 second. Go ahead, Van.
Hi, so talking about the activities and the award, I joined multiple programs and including TOP. I just like don't have like an exact time that I participate, and you was mentioned about like 3 hours max per week. Like, yeah, I was just wondering, since I joined most of the workshops, and I also like joining the transfer weekend, which is like obviously more than 3 hours per week. So is that like an approximate amount of hours that I attend? Participate in the programs per years?
Yeah, so ATSW is its own program, right? It's its own thing. So what you want to do is you want to click on other, and then you want to type in ATSW. Or if you're part of like, so you can write like Aggie transfer scholar week again. And then, you know, and then you can describe right here, I attended in 2020 or 2021, 2022, 2023, whatever, right? And this program was to kind of help me navigate, right? Like to be more familiar with like the transfer process, right? And whatever, right? So you write all of that on there, right? And then you want to click on this. But if you're part of like the ATSW program, it should be 0 because it was only like a week, right? So you're gonna only click 1 on here, and then you would put the hours on it was like 30 something hours, right? Because you guys have like a whole week long. So you can kind of like estimate like how many hours on there, like let's say 30, right? And then on here, it would say 1 week because it was just a weekend, right? But prior to the weekend, we also have like one-on-one appointment online. There was stuff that you guys had to do. So that's why I say I will be comfortable just putting 30 on there, right? And then 1 week on there. But HSW is its own thing. It's not like it's part of TOP, but it is its own program. Just kind of like Discover UC Davis. And by the way, Discover is going to be on March 1st. So if you're interested in going to a college tour and stuff like that, check in with your transfer center director or coordinator at your community college. And then you're going to have to fill out like field trip forms and things like that. But you can also put that on here. If you plan to go to Discover, you can also put that on there. There's other things that like maybe other UCs also have support programs that you also participate in. So I work in the Bay Area, so a lot of my schools are in the Bay Area, so a lot of students also utilize the Berkeley Transfer Alliance program, right? So I see that often. Right, so those are the things that I would put on there. Like same thing with MESA, like they're part of MESA because they're STEM major, so they will put that on there. Right, but for you, Anne, I would probably put ATSW on like out, like the way that I'm showing you right here. But I think for like TOP particularly, I would say like 1 or 2 hours a week is like probably max for you.
Okay, I see.
And then I would put like 50, you know, I would say like 40 weeks in a year for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me see if I can stop sharing. And then I think I saw another hand earlier somewhere. Is there any more hands? All right. Lily, is there any questions in here that we should answer?
There were some for the Honor Society, so they're participant Honor Society, and they're asking if those counted as a program.
Honor Society, I would put it under honor. Oh, like Phi Theta Kappa?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would put it, you can put it under honor, or you could also put it under extracurricular activity. For that one, Barry, I would put that in there. Can we ask scholarships also? Hamad asked that. In the activity and award section, yes. If you receive scholarships at your community college or like through external entities like outside of your schools and you got a scholarship, yeah, you could totally do that. I had a Coca-Cola scholarship and I would put that on there, right? Again, it's not like it's not like a laundry list, right? But like if I was to put Coca-Cola scholarship on there, what would I write? Like Coca-Cola is a name brand, right? Like it's a recognizable name brand, and never in a million years would I think that I would receive a scholarship like this. I know that I'm a great student, but I never thought that, this, and, because I talked to my counselors, I was able to connect it to the scholarship. And at that from that particular, the fact that I received the scholarship isn't something that I'm like, oh, wow about, but the fact that the path that I got to that destination of receiving the scholarship, that's the part that I learned, and it's impactful to me. I learned out of that experience that you learn more when you talk to people, right? You learn more when you're talking to people and you're talking to different people. That's when you learn the most. And so that was a lesson that I would write on there. Let's see real quick. Is there any other ones?
There's one about AP scores. So the student Joshua asked, the TAFA requesting AP score only goes back to 2013. I took my AP between 2011 and 2012, and I have no way of accessing it as I no longer have the College Board account associated with AP score. What should I do with reporting the AP score?
Have you contact IT, Joshua? Have you contact IT? I know it goes only back to 2013, but I have AP exams in 2004 and 5 and 2, and I was able to get a transcript. So maybe you won't have access to go in, like, you know, like a student that just took the AP exam, but you should still able to get your transcript, because those transcripts are permanent record. Legally, they cannot just be like, well, sorry, you don't have a transcript. It's not like that. It's a permanent record. Like even after you die, like it's still there, right? It's a permanent record. So they legally they have to keep that. So maybe you can't get access to the College Board anymore, but you should be able to contact IT and get a transcript for yourself. That's a good question though, because I know that a lot of time that comes up a lot, right? Let me see.
Someone asked, so would we be able to list being a parent under extracurricular activity?
It depends on how you explain it, right? So let's say if you put maybe let me see if I could. Yeah, it's depending on how you explain it. So like, let's say, yes, you technically can. You can include whatever you want. I think if I was a parent and I was a single parent, and that means that there's more time dedicated to my child, obviously, right? So that means that I can't, you know, participate in clubs. I can't participate in ABCD, right? Because that time is dedicated to my family. So let's say on here, I'm going to put extracurricular activity, and I'm gonna put, you know, family responsibility. And on here, what did you do, right? And make sure you read this and share your insight, right? So again, sometimes a parent just means you know, it means something to some people, but like for me as a parent, it means my child comes first. And that means, you know, like, right? So like that means A, B, C, D, and E, right? So you would want it to write that, like the stuff that you do for your kids. And then if your kids is in a younger stage, like let's say if they're an infant or if they're like a toddler, right? That's going to be a little bit different care compared to someone who maybe, like I have a friend that her kid has a disability, like a physical disability. So, you know, like when she was studying and applying for school, it was a challenge because she is also a single parent, and she has a child who has a disability. So it really takes a lot of time away from her to do A, B, C, and D, right? So she talks about that. She talks about how that experience made her become very organized. It made her become very responsible, right? Like very organized. She's like always planning ahead, right? She knows her resources and she knows all of the deadlines so that she like can plan accordingly. Like she become very task oriented, and she become very someone who like use resources and look for resources, right? And she also become an advocate for other families and that have the same similar situations that her, and binding that community together and being part of that community and help one another. So she talked a little bit about that on here. And again, you see what I mean? Like it takes a very different approach on being a parent, right? Or having family responsibility. If that was the situation, it's the insight that comes with it. Like it's more, right? More comes to it. That's a really good question though.
There's another one from a student. I have extensive amounts of time attending to personal medical issues. Should I be listed under extracurricular activities? It took away time that I could have spent somewhere else.
Because they're sick?
Yeah, sounds like due to a lot of personal medical issues.
I wouldn't put that in there because it's not an extracurricular activity. If that is the case, I would probably put it in the additional comment section for your PIQ, because, or you can also talk about the PIQ. You could use one of the prompt, to focus on that. If that is a circumstance that is so impactful to you and your life and the progression of where you're going, then maybe you should talk about that in a PIQ, or even, in the, maybe you don't want to share too much or go too deep into it, but like, okay, but I just want to disclose this, and you can do that in the additional comment section. But if you really, really want to talk about like how this really prepared you, and try to stay away from the negative part, right? Like stay on like the positive side, like, okay, you have this situation happen to you. Okay, what did you learn? How did it help you? And how is it like, like strengthen you, right? Like that's what you want to focus on when you're writing these kind of things.
That's exactly what I did for my PIQs. I personally relate to the question as well. So that's what I did through the PIQs in the additional comments section.
Yeah. Yeah, and then also too, there's also another additional comment section in the academic history, if it's relate to academic history, right? Yeah. Let's say because of medical issues, I was taken away from school a lot of time, and that's why you saw that there's like these bad grades in the earlier of my academic career. But you also can see that I retook them, or I got academic renewal for them, and I want to say that my grades is not a good it's not a representation of who I will be as a student at your university. So that's something that maybe you should also say that too, if you feel like you need to disclose that, or you feel like you need to talk about that, right? Okay, guys, I think we still have a lot of questions on here, but like I told you earlier, there are some spaces that you can continue this. There was a question on how can I reuse my PIQ essays from high school? I would advise not, because since high school, you as a transfer student, after 2 years, I would hope that you grew and became better as a writer. I know that was the case for me. So like if I was to write when I was in high school versus how I write now as someone who graduated and have a master's degree, I would tell you that my writing now is way 10 times better than what I wrote in the past. And you have no idea how much you grow within the 2 years, right? So I would recommend not to do that. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and share the screen really quick, and I want to continue this conversation later on in different spaces. We still have a lot of workshops that is on the top website. So if you go to ucdavis.edu/top, you're going to be able to click on virtual events, and then you're going to be able to see PIQ roundtable. There's one on the 24th, which is next week. So if you just make sure you read the event, right? The event description, so that you can prepare for that meeting. And then there are still a few more workshop, group advising workshop that I'm hosting. And then there's also a coffee chat. Remember I mentioned earlier, like if you have like 1 or 2, 3 questions or so, you can always utilize this time. But whatever you register to, please make sure you go, because then you take up a space that another student can go, right? So just make sure, like if I'm going to be there, please be there with me, right? It's like, I wouldn't want to be there by myself. And then also another one is AMA, Ask Me Anything for UC application. So that's another one that like after you look at the whole entire application and you're like, oh man, there's this one section I don't know how to answer that particular question, right? You can go to that, or you can also email your top advisor, right? And we can also answer those questions for you on emails too. But this is another options for you to do that. There's a link for top. This recording will be uploaded. Give me a few days. It will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. Okay. And then one last thing I mentioned earlier about, remember financial aid, right? Right there. So if you want to know the basics of, if you're brand new to financial aid and you're like, what the heck is that? Like, what does it actually look like? I hear about grant. What the heck is that? Or I hear about scholarship. What is that? Right? Do I need to pay it back? What is it different with loans, like subsidized loans versus unsubsidized loans, things like that, right? So go to that session to get more information about it. Okay. And then again, we have so many Ask Us Anything UC application, Ask Us Anything about PIQ. You see that here. And then Ask Us Anything in general. It's also right here, right? So there's just so many spaces for you to kind of like do that. So please make sure you take advantage of those resources. And then Jason, I will have you as the last person to ask your question, and then we're going to end our workshop today. Go ahead. Jason?
Hi. Yeah. So my question was in the activities section, if that was the one you were referring to. Yeah, I asked if we had activities that were bi-weekly, and I wasn't sure how we could put like the amount of weeks in the application since it asked for weekly hours. And so
for what participation?
Yeah, for like the amount of participation that you put into the activity per week.
Yeah, but can you give me an example? Like what program, like what did you put on there?
One, for example, is the nursing club. If that club meets, or officers, of course, meet bi-weekly, how do we put that we don't meet every week, but we meet like every 2 weeks or something?
If it's bi-weekly, so that's like every 2 weeks you guys meet, right?
Yeah.
So then I would, again, this is not like completely like, it's like it doesn't have to be like completely like on the dot. If you didn't have a decimal correct, like you're gonna be in trouble. It's not like that. So that's a section just estimate. So if it's bi-weekly, then and it's 1 hour, you said, and then I would put like 1 hour, and then for 1 hour for the first part, and then the second part I would put, let me see, let me go back to that real quick. I would put 1 hour. I will put 1 hour for the first part, the hour spent per week. And then on the week, I would put like, it depends on how many weeks, right? So in the semester, if you guys have like maybe 3 months out of the semester that you're meeting, then you would take that and then, divide. Then I will put that in there. Does that make sense, Jason?
Yeah, so instead of putting 36 weeks, which is the whole semester, I would like cut it down.
Yeah.
Or
no, it's a whole year.
Oh,
unless
right, yes.
unless you're like I'm just hanging out with them for 1 semester, and like next semester I'm dipping, like then
Okay.
That's a different situation, right?
Right,
But usually it's a whole year. And so basically between now until fall of 2024, like how much involvement are you going to have, or are you having with them? That's what you want to put in there.
Right. And the whole year is how many weeks again? 56, or was it?
I think 52 weeks in a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, but a lot of time people don't, like, even clubs, they don't meet during the winter or the summer, right?
Right. Yeah.
So subtract those to be as close to it as possible. But again, if it's not like super close, they're not going to be like bad, like, they're not going to ding you, like they're not going to do that. But you want to be as accurate as possible. It has to make sense, right?
Right.
Like if people put even like if people put like so many activities and then they put like so many hours on there, I'm like, and when I try to add up all the hours, and I'm like, wait, so when do you sleep? Will you sleep like 1 hour a day or something? Like, then that would make sense, right? Do you know what I'm saying? But like, so it has to kind of make sense. Okay.
Got it. Could we also explain in the additional comments if we do bi-weekly? It's just like explain that section.
Which one is it?
In the additional comments.
The additional comments.
Yeah.
The additional comment for so the additional comment is only available in 2 areas. One in the academic history section, and it should be like you should be talking about academic, like whatever you put in there, it has to pertain to that section of academic, right?
Okay, got it.
Right. So an example that the other student was asking about medical, right? It takes away from studying, things like that, and how that, if that contribute or that has an effect on your academic like grades, then you should, that's the section that I would probably put on there. But let's say if it's a personal insight, like more like personal, like it doesn't affect my academic, like like it's not, you know, it wasn't it was a hindrance, but then it didn't affect my academic because you can see all my grades are A's, right? But then it did have an impact on me as a person and my livelihood and how I, you know, enjoy my time and things like that. Like then you can talk about that in the personal insight section.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So I think we are way past time, y'all. So I don't think we have any more hands raised. Oh, we do. Wait, why is my hand raised? I didn't raise any hands. Dang. Okay, let me lower my hands down. Oh, we still have 2 more hand raised. What do you think, Lily? Can we take the last 2?
Sure, why not?
Okay. Okay. Okay, Van, what's your question? Do you have a question?
Yes. So quick question about the PIQs. Since we in the what activities and award, we kind of mentioned about some types of leaderships. So do you think in the PIQs we should mention, I mean, like talk about something else about us, like hobbies or other
that's up to
different
you.
sides of us, or should we like explain more about our leadership goals?
That's up to you on how you explain it. The PIQ give you insight versus the activity is just very quantitative data, right? It's like how many hours you participate, what did you do, what is the program, what is their purpose, right? It's very like tell me what. It's like what and how, versus like, you know, like your insight. I always feel like personal insight question section is it's a section of reflection. That's how I feel. That's my opportunity to dig deeper and to reflect, right? Like let's say if you were to talk about a leadership leadership experience, right? In the PIQ section, you're probably going to dive a little bit deeper, right? Like how has what did you gain from that particular leadership ability? But if you feel like there's enough of it that's overlapping, like if you feel like I think I explained everything that I could possibly explain in terms of what I gained and what I did, what did I do, right? Like I think I demonstrated enough in the activity and awards, then maybe that's a good indication that you should not use the same activity, you know, to as an example in your PIQ. Maybe there's another opportunity out of like all the questions that you have that maybe you can share that like that we don't know that about you, and you're missing that opportunity because you're trying to squeeze, you know, both of these into one. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, because like
thank you so much.
There's a lot of things that I put in the activity and award section that I'm like but I do a really good job in explaining and diving deeper and really like giving my insight and what I learned and what I gained and how I helped and how that changed me as a person, making me more responsible, giving my leadership skill a boost, whatever, right? Like making my communication skills more solid. Maybe I used to not be a decisive person, but because I participate in a student organization that really forced me to speak up a little bit more, to lead, to advocate, and then now that becomes part of my DNA. And maybe prior to participating in that student organization, I didn't know that these skill set is kind of like important to have in order for you to really excel even after, like when you move on to the next stages of your life, like being able to advocate for yourself, being able to think critically, right? Like be a leader, like that is so important, not just while you're a student, but that's the skill set that you carry on even after you graduate, going into the work industry, go into your life. Like how does that change your life overall? So all these skill set really does a lot more. It's not just like, you know, like a transferable skill to one thing and that's it. It's usually a combination with a lot more things. So hopefully that kind of answered that, right? Let me go ahead and have the last person who is, let me see, Jonah, where are you? Okay, there you go, Jonah. You're the last person. Going once, going twice. All right, y'all. All right. I think that's it for the end. It is the end of today. Since he's not talking, I'm going to go ahead and close our session. But thank you so much for tuning in and spending your Thursday with us. Again, the recording will be loaded on our YouTube channel, so you are more than welcome to watch it multiple times. If you're not bored of my voice or my face, you are more than welcome to visit that. But again, I did show you earlier that you could also carry these conversations in different spaces that we're going to have in the future workshops. So feel free to sign up for those, but make sure you make time to go to those if you do sign up for it. Okay. Other than that, if you don't have any other questions for me, thank you so much for hanging out, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye, Lily. Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.